Hello there, my name is Doug Hills, author of Manga Studio for Dummies and the upcoming series of Manga Studio 5 field guides, and this is your instructional video for the set of curvilinear rulers I've created for the program. If you've read my books or seen my other tutorial videos, you know that I'm a big fan of the perspective rulers in Manga Studio. The fact that you can create practically anything in 1, 2, or 3-point perspective was something I felt made working in the digital medium that much nicer and easier. If I wanted to go beyond 3-point perspective, say I wanted to create something that was reflected in a concave mirror or viewed in a fisheye lens, that was a bit harder to do. The distortion that's caused when drawing in curvilinear was something that could not be done with the native rulers in Manga Studio. So using a combination of perspective and elliptical rulers, I've designed a set of curvilinear rulers for you all to use, and this video will explain how you can use them. Now, before we get into how to use the rulers, we need to first install them into the program. To do that, I'll first open one of the rulers. File, open. And I'll select the 4-point perspective ruler to start. We'll repeat this process with the 5-point perspective. Press open. Now that the ruler is open, I come up to the main menu and select Edit, Register Layer as Template Material. I enter in my name, and I'm going to be very specific because there's no preview icon that will be seen in the materials folder. So I will put in 4-point perspective. And I'll navigate to the place I want to save my ruler. I'm going to save it in my user folder, which is one that I created, but you can save this any place in materials that you'd like. I'll click user, press OK, and now my ruler is saved to materials. I come up to the main menu, and I'm going to create a new canvas. I enter in a canvas size similar to the one that the 4-point perspective ruler was set in, which was 3000 pixels by 3000 pixels at 300 dpi. I'll turn off my manga draft settings and change my units to pixels, and I'll enter in a value of 3000 with a resolution of 300. I'm going to check the template box, and I'm going to select my newly registered 4-point perspective ruler selected right here. And again, you'll see there's no preview, so that's why I made sure to have the template name as specific as I could. And incidentally, if you don't see it on top, scroll through the list, and you should see it pop up eventually. Just look for whatever you named your 4-point perspective ruler. I select this, hit OK, and now I'm going to register this as a preset. And I'll enter the name 4-point perspective. I'm going to click on the template checkbox because I want to make sure that in this preset, the 4-point perspective ruler is always selected. Hit OK, and hit OK. And now I'll have a new canvas that's set to the same dimensions as my initial ruler. Now I did all this because the rulers cannot be rescaled or transformed using the transform function located up here on the command bar, and the object select tool can only transform one ruler at a time. So if I use the object select tool on this ruler, the shape and positioning of the rulers would get ruined. Now saving the ruler as a preset allows us to create the ruler at the size and resolution that we would need. Now I have the sample page here as an example. Let's say I want to use this panel and I want to draw something in 4-point perspective. The first thing that I would do is I would select my marquee tool and I would get a basic measurement of what this is. Now keeping in mind that my dimensions here are 11 inches by 17 inches at 600 dpi. And I get an approximate thing. I try to keep it as square as possible, because the linear ruler is on a square canvas, and that's pretty close. So about 7 inches by 6.9 inches, which you can see on the information tab here. So I have my basic dimensions here, about 7 inches square, and I'm going to create a new canvas. And I'm going to use my 4-point perspective preset, and press OK. Now what I do is I come up to the main menu and select Edit, Change Image Resolution. And I change my units from pixels to inches, and I have my width of 7 inches square, so I change my width to 7 inches, and the height will change accordingly. The resolution of the sample page was 600 dpi, so I'll change the resolution here to 600 dpi. Press OK. And now the ruler has been reset to the size that we want for the sample page. From here, I can either work directly on this canvas that we've created and then copy the finished image over to the sample page, or if I select the 4-point perspective folder here, copy, and then I come back to the sample page and select Edit, Paste, and there's my 4-point perspective ruler ready to go. All I do then is select my Move Layer tool, unlock the folder, And then I can reposition the ruler until it's in the place that I would like it to be on the page. Now that we got into the installation, let's have fun and let's make some stuff using 4-point and 5-point perspective. So to recap the ways we can draw in perspective in Manga Studio, there's 1 point, where all the lines either go vertical, horizontal, or to the central vanishing point. 2 point, where the lines either go vertical or to the 2 vanishing points you see here on the horizon. Or 3-point perspective, where all the lines converge to either the 2 vanishing points on the horizon, or, zoom out a bit, a vertical vanishing point either located above or below the horizon. In this case, it's above the horizon. With 4-point perspective, we're working with just that, 4 vanishing points. They're the 2 points on the horizon, which are used for my horizontal rulers, and my north and south poles, which I use to designate my vertical rulers. Now, opening the 4-point perspective folder here, you can see my vertical and my horizontal rulers. The horizontal ruler is just a basic 2-point perspective ruler. The vertical rulers were created with a series of elliptical rulers evenly spaced out. I'll zoom in so you can kind of see them. They are evenly spaced and gradually become larger until they reach the east and west poles, thus creating the circle that you see here. And this is so that we can replicate the distortion effect that occurs when drawing in 4-point perspective. So to demonstrate drawing in 4-point perspective, I'm going to draw a variation of the scene that I just showed earlier, which is this basic room with a crate scene. Now I'm going to turn on my Snap to ruler and Snap to special ruler functions. I'll use my pencil and I start drawing. Now in Manga Studio, basic rulers trump special rulers. This means that if you are near a basic ruler, that will take precedence over a special ruler, as you're seeing here. So all the lines right now I'm drawing are going to draw along the vertical ruler. If I want to draw along the horizontal rulers, I have to temporarily turn off the vertical rulers. And the easiest way to do that is to turn off the Snap to ruler function. Now when I draw, all the lines will converge along the horizontal lines. When I'm ready to draw some vertical lines again, I turn on the Snap to ruler function. Now as a quick little shortcut, if you have a keyboard nearby, simply click Command 1 on Macs or Alt 1 on Windows and it'll easily toggle the Snap to ruler on and off. So now that we have that, I'll start drawing in my room. The more that I've started to play around with this ruler, the more of a groove I started to develop as toggling between the vertical and horizontal rulers, and the faster the toggling process went. Now, hopefully you'll find that same groove as you work. Now, I jumped ahead here and turned off the ruler so you can see what the drawing looks like in 4-point perspective. And if you notice, in the middle, the lines don't look that distorted. But the further out you go towards the edge, to the circumference of the circle, the lines start to warp and bend more. And this is the distortion effect that comes with drawing in 4-point perspective. You can really see it at the bottom of the scene near the crate as it is drawn vertically down. The lines really start to bend and warp towards the South Pole. With 5-point perspective, you have your horizontal and vertical rulers like before, but now we've added a central point right here in the middle of the ruler. This is our 5th point that we use to create depth in the scene. We're going to get the same kind of distortion that we had with our 4-point perspective ruler, except this time the distortion will happen both vertically and horizontally. Now, opening up the 5-point perspective folder, you'll see we have our center point, which is a simple 1-point perspective ruler. Below that, we have a series of folders containing our horizontal and vertical rulers in a variety of sizes, from extra large all the way down to fine, which is a very, very small mesh of vertical and horizontal rulers. This gives you the ability to work your way down your drawing if you wanted. For example, you could use the extra large grid here to plot out your scene, and then as you work, you can bring in the large, medium, small, and fine to work down and fine-tune and get very detailed with your finished product. So let's do the same thing we did in the 4-point example. I'll recreate the room with a crate scene, only this time in 5-point perspective. Now I'm going to start with the large grid, and I'm not actually going to turn on the Snap to features right now. I actually want to just sketch out the scene initially, just using, I'll use the rough pencil, switch to my drawing layer, and I'm just going to rough out the basic idea of the scene. Now, I make sure to follow along the contours of the grid that we're seeing here, while keeping in mind that this is the central point right about here. So I follow along the contours of the grid while at the same time drawing out almost very similar to the 1-point perspective example I showed earlier, except as I go, the lines are going to start warping the further out I go. When jump cut later, here's my rough sketch. It may not be precisely to how the final image will look contour-wise and perspective-wise, but at least now I have the basic idea of where the scene is going to be. Now that I have that down, I'm going to switch to a finer mesh grid. I'll switch to medium for now. And now I'll go through the same process I did before, toggling between the horizontal and vertical rulers and the center point perspective ruler. I'll reduce the opacity, add on a new layer, and then I'll start drawing. I'll actually switch to my G pen so we can see it a little easier. And like before, I'm just going to follow along the rulers. And this actually brings up a good point. I'm going to zoom in here for a second. Now, as you work with smaller grids, you're going to run into an issue where the line drawn might not follow the path that you want to take. And this is because when two basic rulers are intersecting, if you draw along that intersection, Manga Studio is not going to know which direction you're going in. So while you start here and you may want to draw horizontally, Manga Studio may think you're drawing vertically instead. So to combat this, just make sure that when you draw along these rulers, that you start at a point that is open, like not near a corner point, like so. And this guarantees that you're going to go in the direction you want. This gets a little harder when you're working with a really, really fine grid here. I'll zoom in further, because here it becomes that much harder to get between the corners. My suggestion, if you're drawing on one of the smaller grids, is to hide the ruler you don't want to draw on. Now, opening up the fine folder here, you'll see that there are two layers, one for the vertical rulers and one for the horizontal rulers. If I wanted to just focus on doing the vertical rulers, I would hide the horizontal ruler by clicking the eyeball. And you'll notice those are all gone. I'll hide the other rulers just to reduce confusion. And now I zoom out, and I can draw while zoomed out and still able to draw and not worry about if I'm hitting a corner or not, and I'm going in the direction that I want. If I'm ready to start switching over to horizontal, show the horizontal, hide the vertical, and now I can start drawing in the molding in this case. And when I'm ready to start drawing in the depth, same as with the 4-point. I turn off the snap to ruler, and now I can draw to the center, like so. And so this one's a little more complicated than the 4-point in that you're going to be toggling between 3 different rulers. But ultimately, I think this gives you greater control over being able to work in really high detail and not have to worry about which line goes where. I'll draw the crate. I'll start with my horizontals in this case, and then switch to vertical like that. And you're getting the basic idea here that you can just kind of toggle between the perspective, the vertical, and the horizontal to create our 5-point fisheye lens look. One jump cut later, I have a room with a crate drawn in 5-point perspective. And just like before, there's a little distortion in the middle. You can see here, like the lines, the vertical lines and the horizontal lines kind of bow out a little bit. But the further along you go, a little closer to the edge, the bigger the distortion becomes. And I'll actually turn off the ruler so you can see this. And I'll even show this in comparison to the 1-point perspective. So you see this in 1-point perspective, all the lines are very straight and they all converge either to the central vanishing point or vertical or horizontal. By comparison, the 5-point perspective does the same thing in a way, but provides the ability to create this fisheye concave mirror effect. And so the examples I showed here are fairly simple, but the more you practice with drawing in curvilinear perspective, the wilder the scenes you'll be able to draw. And my hope with this set is that it will help you push beyond your current skill set and allow you to try drawing in a way that you haven't tried before. In any case, that will do it for this instructional video. I hope that you will find it helpful for your work, and at the very least you have a new tool to experiment with in Manga Studio. Thank you very much for watching and for purchasing this curvilinear ruler set, and I'll see you next time.